Hey guys, welcome to Dialed MTB again. Here we are with the 2022 Santa Cruz Hightower S build and the Devinci Troy. This is a 2021, but they're almost identical specs for 2022. Price on the Hightower is $59.49. Devinci Troy is $61.49. So just $200 separates them, and they are almost identically spec'd. So let's get into it. Alright, so how identical are the specs? They both come with aluminum bars, they both come with GX drivetrain, they both come with Fox Performance 36-150 travel up front. They come with a similar rear shock, I'd say. One's RockShox, which this is the Super Deluxe Select Plus, so second to the top of line from RockShox in that kind of same category. And then for the Devinci, it's the Fox Float X2 Performance Elite, so second to the top of the line again. So once again, just kind of tying each other. I will say the dropper post on the Hightower is nicer. It's the RockShox Reverb compared to what usually comes on the Troy is a SDG, which I did not like at all. So I swapped that thing out right away and put a bike yoke on it. All right, so both of these bikes do come with Codar brakes. The Troy does have Magura MT7s on it right now because I upgraded them. So for braking, I'm just going to make it a wash. Both of these manufacturers do offer lifetime warranties. Santa Cruz, I'd say, is a tiny bit upper hand on that because they do offer lifetime bearing replacement also. So that's a pretty big lifetime warranty, which is pretty rad that they do that. Other than that, bike is so dang close. Wheel sets are going to be the same for 2022 race face AR30s. I mean, the hubs are going to be a tiny bit different, but they're going to have almost identical engagements and all of that. On the 21, it did come with the race face AR35s, so a little bit wider, but 2022, they're even. So let's get out on the trails and see how these things climb, descend, and do some timed laps. All right, so the Troy has a very comfortable, supportive climbing feel. It doesn't bob much, but on the Fox X2, I definitely feel like you gotta reach down and flip that climb switch. It has a really nice firm setting. It's not fully locked out, so it still has a little bit of give. So it still has some traction and kind of just keeps things smooth, which I like. This bike is just a very comfortable climber. It is a little bit longer than your standard size medium with a 460 millimeter reach compared to the Hightower with a 450. So I did put a 40 millimeter stem on here, so 10 millimeters shorter than stock and also 10 millimeters shorter than the Hightower. This bike doesn't feel like it's the fastest climber by any means, but it's gonna get you there for sure. It's gonna be faster than the big enduro bikes, and with it having that Fox X2 rear shock, it kind of climbs better than you expect. The linkage on this is just very supportive, like I said, and comfortable, so can't say that enough. So this bike, I think, has a better feeling linkage for climbing than the Hightower, and it is about 1 pound exactly heavier with pedals and water bottle cage on it. It is 32.9 pounds, and the Hightower is 31.9. But I think this bike feels better climbing, but I have a feeling that overall the Hightower will be just a tad bit faster for the climb, where just my predictions, I think this bike will be a tad bit faster on the downhill. So overall, this bike climbs well. It's impressive. I don't think Devinci gets enough credit for their bikes, or like, it's just not known well enough, the brand in general. So let's get this bike to the descent and let's check in on the Hightower and see how that does on the climbs. All right, so sorry about that. In the steep and more chunky section of this trail, my GoPro was not recording, so that's a bummer. But what I was saying is this bike is really good in the more chunky stuff, and I would say that kind of has to do with that Float X or the Fox X2 rear shock. And I think personally that rear shock is about the most downhill oriented air shock out there. I think it is just a great shock. So anyways, I'd also gone over head tube angle, which is 65.0 in the low position, and right now I am testing both of these bikes in the low position. But I do want to say I do like the Devinci Troy in the high mode. I think after this I'll probably be putting it back in high because I think I like it better. But it's only in the low mode, it's only 0.2 degrees slacker than the Hightower, so I don't think anyone's really going to notice that. The wheelbase is 1215 millimeters in the low position, 1213 in the high, and the wheelbase on the Hightower, I believe, is about 10 millimeters shorter. So it is a little bit steeper, a little bit shorter, but we're talking very small amount within that size medium that I'm riding today. I am just under 5'9", and I think both of these bikes are the perfect size for me. So this bike does have a little bit of playfulness. I would say it definitely just tracks the ground very well and wants to just plow for being 140 in the back and only 150 up front. They do also offer the XT LTD model, which the LTD basically comes with nicer wheels, nicer suspension, and the biggest thing would be that 160 fork up front, which slackens it out a ½ degree, which I actually have a 160 fork at home, which I'm going to do with this bike. I think that's going to be pretty dang awesome. But let's go ahead and do a real quick summary of this bike. Overall, climbs well, descends better than it climbs. Kind of, I'd say, above its pay grade, because a 140 bike, in my opinion, shouldn't feel this plush, especially in like braking bumps. It's really, really intuitive in braking bumps. Like, it doesn't feel like you can't brake. It feels very comfortable and controlled, which is a huge bonus. So let's go ahead, get to the Hightower and see how that does. All right guys, if you guys have been watching my videos and have not subscribed yet, I was looking at some statistics and it's like 1 to 5% of my viewers are actually subscribed. So if you guys could hit that subscribe button, that would be awesome. All right, let's get back to how these bikes are doing. All right, here we are on the 2022 Santa Cruz Hightower S build. So almost identically spec'd as that Troy GX build. And right away getting on this bike, I would say you almost feel kind of higher up. You feel more over the front end. Troy has a pretty relaxed feeling seated position. This one is still relaxed and comfortable. It just feels like you're more over the front. So a little side note, which that might just be that Troy is a little bit longer, 10 millimeters longer. I am gonna run this bike locked out just for this testing purposes, but I have had a Hightower. I've had 3 Hightowers, and I 100% prefer climbing with this bike in the open position. It's just more comfortable for me, but I wanted to keep it even, so I'll do that. But just wanted to kind of let you guys know that lockout feature for me is kind of pointless on the Hightower. So this bike, I would say right away, it does feel, you can feel the little bit lighter of the bike, but I don't know, I'm not really sure if I'm actually climbing faster. I've actually been trying to keep my heart rate at 150, and I did just get up to 158, so I'm gonna try to bring that back down a little bit to keep it even between the bikes. Climbing on this bike, it's good. I mean, it's a great bike overall. I've absolutely loved the Hightower for a couple years now, and there's a reason why I've had it as my personal bike for a while. So pretty excited to be able to compare this bike back to back with that Troy, which honestly right now I kind of think is its biggest competitor, even though I don't think many people are actually looking at the Troy compared to the Hightower, which is kind of a bummer. This bike climbs well, it's efficient, it's going to be good for long days. Probably will feel like you're putting out a little less energy on those long days than a Troy. But once again, my prediction, like I did with the Troy, I think this bike is going to climb a little better, but I think the Troy will descend a little better. So let's go ahead and get to the top and see how it compares. All right, quick update. For the climb, I just did about 500 feet of the 650 feet elevation gain total for the climb, and it took 1.25 miles to do. So I timed both bikes. The Troy was at 15 minutes and 15 seconds. The Hightower, to my surprise, was at 16 minutes and 2 seconds. So it was actually slower, which I was not expecting. I felt faster the entire time up. I started the stopwatch in the exact same spot and put out the same effort. All right, so this was the section that I did not get on camera with the Troy, which is a bummer. I was talking a bunch about how smooth it is through here, and I mean, the Hightower does feel a little bit smoother. Well, I wouldn't say smoother, but rolling a little faster. They both feel very similar in how smooth it actually is going. So real quick, the Hightower has a 65.2 degree head tube angle, which I talked about on the Troy video, but that's almost identical. This does have a 1208 millimeter wheelbase, 7 millimeters shorter. When you put this thing in the high position, the head tube angle is actually identical. So I mean, these bikes are so dang similar across the board on Geo. So this bike, I feel like I am going a little faster on the descent right now. Not sure why, but I'm not sure why I thought I'd be faster on the other one, but you know, I thought I was climbing faster on this bike and I wasn't. So there's a lot to be said with feel and actual numbers. The Troy could have been just because it feels a little more planted. This bike does feel a little bit more lively, I'd say, but it's not as stuck in the ground as the Troy is. So I don't know, kind of up to your riding style and how you like your bike to feel. These bikes are so close across the board that I would say, honestly, if you want a little more poppy, maybe a little more playful bike, not even talking about times, this bike is going to be for you. If you want a bike that makes you feel that you can just absolutely blast down anything and not care, I think the Troy has the upper hand on that. So both super capable bikes. I'm just trying to pick out small stuff. There are not major differences in between either one of them, but the ones I'm saying is just what I'm noticing going back and forth on them within, you know, 30-40 minutes of each other. Right away, my kind of thoughts are, if you're looking at a new bike, man, I would say if you want one bike that's just going to feel fun and playful, maybe not most deadening of rocks and roots and chomp and stuff, but a little more lively than the Troy, the Hightower would probably be my pick. If you want a bike that just feels like it absolutely shreds down everything, then I would go with the Troy. But we're gonna go more into this after I get done riding and we're talking about both bikes combined. All right, so as I was talking about on the climbs, I was actually pretty surprised that the Troy beat the Hightower on the more, like the steeper beginning part of the climb. That's just, it's about 500 feet of climbing in like a mile and a quarter, or maybe a tiny bit over that. So I was pretty surprised that the Devinci beat it by almost an entire minute. And then once it flattened out, I was able to gain 5 seconds back on the Hightower. I mean, it was like another, it was about like 14 minutes past that, and I only gained 5 seconds. So they pretty much were even. So overall, from bottom to top, the Devinci was 54 seconds faster, which I honestly was not anticipating that. I thought that was going to be in the Hightower's favor. So that's pretty interesting. I do like the feeling of the climbing better on the Troy. It just feels kind of more of a supportive, not so much movement in the travel while you're climbing. All right, so let's go to the descents. How did they fare there? I thought the Troy was going to do better. It was a lot closer than I expected. So after looking at the times, the Troy in the upper section, which I didn't get a record, which is a bummer, did beat the Hightower by 5 seconds. The Hightower was at 123, Troy was at 118, so a little bit faster. Even though, like I said on the video, I thought the Hightower felt faster, but once again, the perception is a little different than reality, I guess. So overall, that's where it got a lot closer. The upper part that I did expect the Troy to be quite a bit faster on. I mean, it's not quite a bit, it was only 5 seconds, but it was a pretty short section. It did go faster. Other than that, let's go into the length, the full length of the trail, which the full length is about 4 minutes, but there's not really a Strava section that's really good at that. So it covers the majority of it. It's about 3 minutes. So on the Hightower, I was at 255, and on the Troy, 254. So almost identical. The bottom part does kind of flatten out, and it's more smooth and kind of poppy and jumpy. So I would say the bottom part, I had more fun on the Hightower. The upper part was more fun on the Troy. So overall, what bike is best for you? I think it really is what do you want to do? Do you want to be really planted and just plow through stuff with a little bit of playfulness? It's definitely still fun and a little poppy and playful, but not as much as the Hightower. The Hightower is a little more playful, but it gives up kind of that forgiving attitude that the Troy has. So, I mean, very similar bikes overall. They're actually a lot more similar than I expected them to be. I personally would probably prefer the Devinci Troy out of these two bikes, but the Hightower is such a good all-around bike. I do think that they might be making a new Hightower in around June to August of 2022. So it's got about a year left until they might change this thing. With the Devinci, I would 100% spend the $850 more and go to that XT LTD model. It has Performance Elite with a Grip 2 damper up front with 160 mil travel, which right after this video, I'm actually putting 160 mil factory Grip 2 fork on. It has the XT brakes, which I think are a lot better. It has carbon bars and a bunch of other things. So I think value-wise, if you can spend about $1,000 more than either of these bikes, that XT Troy is gonna hands down be the best value out of everything. But if $6,000 is the max, which is a lot of money, really it just comes down to, do you want playful or a little more planted? All right, guys, let's wrap things up. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments down below. I'll get to them as soon as I can. And if you like this video, like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. And like always, get out and ride, guys.